Hello, this is David with Everything Economics, and today we're going to talk about the demand side of the market. So this is a fundamental concept for economics. Almost everything is based on supply and demand. So we're going to focus on demand today. So let's get started. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just write a few things first, and then we'll go over some problems. So if you've taken any economics course, you always have your graph, and on the y-axis we have price, and this could be the price of goods, it could be the price of labor, whatever you're measuring in price. And then on the x-axis we have quantity, and this is the amount that you want for each price. And so the demand curve is downward sloping and usually has an inverse relationship between price and quantity. So basically, the higher the price, the less quantity people are willing to spend. So for example, we might have an item that costs $500, and at $500, people are not willing to buy that many, maybe just one. But then as we go down to a cheaper price, we'll say $250, when the price falls, people are willing to buy more of that. And so we have a new quantity, and I'm just going to say 2. All right, and so that is our basic demand curve, which represents all potential buyers in a market. Now, I just want to briefly mention supply. And so we have the supply side, and I'm going to talk about that later on. Supply side is same thing. We have the price, we have the quantity, but in this case we have a supply curve that has a positive relationship with price and quantity. So the higher the price, the more likely producers are willing to produce goods. So suppliers are made up of companies that are willing to produce goods and services. And so if the price is high, say $500 again, suppliers are willing to provide a high quantity for that, which makes sense. If you can sell the same product for a much higher price, you're wanting to sell more of those. And then likewise, if the price falls, then producers are less likely to produce that product because you don't make as much profit. And let's see, let's go ahead and put that there. All right, so where we have our supply curve and we have our demand curve. And of course, finally, and we won't go through this so much today, but finally, when we have the supply curve and the demand curve meet, we call that the equilibrium point. And the equilibrium point is the point at which they meet, and that is the point where producers and consumers are willing to purchase. All right, so let's go into the next slide. Let me write here, equilibrium point. That's that one. All right, so let's go ahead and go into the next slide and answer a few questions about the demand side of the market. All right, so here we have, let's just look at the graph real quick. We have the demand for digital music players. Okay, so this is the demand curve. And on the y-axis, we have the price. The price is dollars per player. And then the quantity. This is the millions of players per month. So let's look at the question. It says the point of 250 million, or I'm sorry, the point of $250 and 35 million players represents a point on the market demand curve for digital music players. Which of the following interpretations of this point on the graph is correct? So the point they're talking about is 250 at 35, which is going to be around right here, approximately. So that's the point that we're going to focus on right here. All right, so which one of these statements would be correct? So let's see, we have letter A, B, C, and D. So A is the dot shows that consumers spend a total of $250 on 35 million players each month. B, when one player costs $250, consumers buy 35 million of them per month. C, when one player costs 250, suppliers sell 35 million of them a month. D, at 250, quantity demand equals quantity supply. Well, we can rule out D, definitely, because we don't have a supply curve, so that's out. So we're just focusing on the demand. Letter C, when one player costs 250, suppliers sell 35 million of them per month. Well, key word here is suppliers. Since we're looking at only the demand curve, we don't have the supply curve, so we don't know how much or how many suppliers are willing to supply at that price. So C is definitely wrong. B, when one player costs $250, consumers buy 35 million of them per month. Okay, that could be possible. 250 and 35 million a month. And let's see, letter A, the dot shows that consumers spend a total of $250 on 35 million players each month. So the wording here is like spends a total of $250 on 35 million players. Well, that's not correct. So cross that one out. So B is our correct answer. So when the price of players is at $250, consumers are willing to buy 35 million of them. All right, let's go to the next question. Question 2, we're going to have the same exact graph, price and quantity of digital music players. It says, what happens to quantity demanded along this demand curve? Right, so A, it increases as the price increases. B, it increases as the price decreases. C, it may increase or decrease as the price increases. D, it is not related to price. Well, if we look at D, it is not related to price. We know that's wrong because the demand curve has a relationship with price and quantity. So that's definitely wrong. Letter C, it may increase or decrease as the price increases. Well, that is not entirely true because if quantity demanded may increase, does not mean it would increase when the price increases. So that one is definitely wrong. It increases as the price decreases. Well, as the price falls, the quantity, as we can tell, increases. So that one is looks like it might be right. And then A, it increases as the price increases. Well, that's definitely wrong because if the price increases, demand is going to fall. There's going to be less demand for digital music players. So A is definitely wrong. So B is definitely correct in this case. All right, and let's go to the last question. Question 3, it says, along the demand curve, what happens to the quantity demanded as the price falls from $250 to $200 per player? And our answers are A, the quantity demanded rises from 35 million to 40 million players per month. So here we are at this point. Let me get my pen out here. We are at this point, 250. It has fallen to 200. And so the quantity demanded has increased from 35 to 40 million. To 40 million. So that one actually looks like it's going to be correct. So A is most likely correct. B, the quantity demanded falls from 40 million to 35. We know that is wrong. So that one is definitely wrong. C, we cannot predict the change in the quantity demanded without the supply curve. That's also incorrect. And the change in quantity demanded is not related to a change in price. That is also incorrect. All right, so there's some basic introductory information on demand. Stay tuned for my next video, which will focus on supply, and then we'll eventually move into some more difficult problems between supply and demand. All right, thank you, and if you like this video, please send a like and feel free to subscribe. Thank you.